You know that feeling when you are planning something special for months, putting your heart into every detail, only to be told you are not welcome. That was me, 3 days before my mom's 55th birthday party. I had booked her favorite restaurant, coordinated with relatives, even picked out the perfect dress. Then came that phone call about family dynamics and making everyone comfortable. I never imagined I would become the unwanted guest at my own mother's celebration. Before I dive into the shock that turned my world upside down, let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button so you never miss family drama stories like this one. Trust me, the ending will blow your mind in ways you cannot imagine. I am Erika, 32 years old, and I work as regional marketing director at a major tech company here in Seattle. My life has always been about proving myself, especially to my family. My younger sister, Sophia, 28, chose a different path as a part time influencer, and somehow, she always seemed to effortlessly capture our mother's attention and approval. Our family has always been traditional with my mother, holding strong opinions about how things should look and feel. Growing up, I learned early that success meant everything to her, but apparently, my version of success was not quite what she had in mind. While I climbed the corporate ladder, earned my MBA, and built a stable career, Sophia lived her life posting perfectly filtered photos and collecting likes on social media. 3 months before mom's birthday, Sophia started dating this guy named Daniel. From the moment she introduced him during a family dinner, our mother was absolutely smitten. Daniel was charming, well dressed, and said all the right things. He complimented mom's cooking, asked thoughtful questions about her garden, and seemed genuinely interested in family stories. I could see the sparkle in my mother's eyes whenever she talked about Sophia's wonderful new boyfriend. The phone call that changed everything came on a Tuesday evening. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my mother's number appeared on my screen. Her voice carried that particular tone she used when she had made up her mind about something important. Erica, honey, we need to have a serious conversation about the birthday celebration, she began, and immediately I sensed trouble brewing beneath her carefully measured words. She started by praising Daniel again, describing him as the most impressive young man Sophia had ever brought home. She talked about his manners, his ambition, and how perfectly he fit into our family dynamic. Then came the subtle shift in her tone. I have been thinking about the party and I want everything to be absolutely perfect, she continued. Daniel will be meeting some of our extended family for the first time, and you know how important first impressions are. I am concerned about the overall image we present as a family. My stomach began to knot as I listened, sensing where this conversation was heading, but hoping I was wrong. You have always been so successful, so accomplished, and that is wonderful, dear. But sometimes that can be a bit overwhelming for other people. I worry that you might accidentally overshadow Sophia and Daniel. They are building something beautiful together, and I do not want anything to interfere with that. The words hit me like a physical blow. My own mother was essentially telling me that my success, my achievements were somehow a threat to my sister's relationship. What exactly are you saying, Mom? I managed to ask, though my voice felt strangely distant. I think it might be better if you sit this one out, honey. Just this once. Let Sophia have her moment to shine with Daniel. You understand, do not you? It is not personal. It is just about family harmony. The silence that followed felt endless. I stared at my apartment wall, processing the reality that my mother had just uninvited me from her birthday party because I apparently did not look good next to my sister's boyfriend. The irony was not lost on me that my professional success, something most parents would celebrate, had become a liability in my own family. I wanted to argue to point out how unfair and hurtful this was, but instead, I heard myself saying, "Of course, Mom, I understand. I want you to have a wonderful birthday." After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen feeling completely hollow. Memories flooded back of all the times I had felt like the outsider in my own family. The graduations where Sophia's cheerleading achievements got more attention than my academic honors. The family gatherings where my career updates were met with polite nods, while Sophia's latest Instagram collaboration sparked animated discussions. Despite the hurt, I decided to handle this with grace. I ordered beautiful flowers to be delivered to the restaurant along with an expensive gift I had already purchased months earlier. I wrote a heartfelt card wishing Mom the happiest birthday and expressing my love for our family. The night of the party, I watched from the sidelines of social media as my family celebrated without me. Sophia posted photo after photo of the elegant dinner, showing Daniel fitting seamlessly into our family circle. He looked comfortable and confident, making animated conversation with relatives, his arm proudly around Sophia's shoulders. As I scrolled through the images, something nagged at me about Daniel's face. He looked familiar in a way that went beyond our few family encounters. I studied his profile in the photos, trying to place where I might have seen him before, but the memory remained frustratingly elusive. I convinced myself that family was more important than my ego, that sometimes sacrifices were necessary for the greater good. I told myself that my mother's happiness mattered more than my hurt feelings, even as I spent the evening alone with takeout and a bottle of wine, feeling like a stranger in my own family. Monday morning arrived with typical Seattle drizzle, and I threw myself into work with renewed focus. At least in my professional life, I was valued and respected for exactly who I was. I had a full day of meetings ahead, including reviewing applications for a new marketing coordinator position we desperately needed to fill. Around 10 in the morning, my assistant knocked on my office door with a stack of resumes. "These are the top 5 candidates for the coordinator position," she announced, setting them down on my desk. "The interviews are scheduled for this week." I began flipping through the applications, impressed by the quality of candidates we had attracted. Strong educational backgrounds, relevant experience, solid references. Then I reached the 4th resume and froze completely. Daniel Thompson, 28 years old, marketing degree from University of Washington, 3 years of experience at a startup that had recently downsized. The photo paperclip to his application was unmistakably the same Daniel who had been charming my family just days earlier. My heart raced as I stared at his credentials. This was definitely Sophia's boyfriend, the man my mother had deemed so impressive that my presence would somehow diminish his shine. Here he was applying for a position that would report directly to me. I immediately opened LinkedIn to confirm my suspicions. There he was, Daniel Thompson, with the same background and timeline that matched both his resume and what I knew about Sophia's boyfriend. His profile showed he had been unemployed for the past 2 months, actively seeking new opportunities in the marketing field. The irony was almost too much to process. The man who was supposedly so impressive that I could not be in the same room with him was now essentially asking me for a job. The cosmic justice of the situation was not lost on me, but it also created an incredibly complicated, professional and personal dilemma. I spent the rest of the morning wrestling with what to do. Part of me wanted to immediately disqualify his application to avoid the inevitable awkwardness and complications. But my professional integrity would not allow such petty behavior. Daniel's qualifications were solid, and our department genuinely needed someone with his skill set. By afternoon, I had made my decision. I would conduct the interview exactly as I would with any other candidate. If Daniel was truly as impressive as my family believed, he would earn the position on his own merits. If he was not, well, that would become apparent soon enough. Wednesday morning arrived with Daniel's interview scheduled for 11 o'clock. I had prepared standard questions, reviewed his portfolio, and steeled myself for what promised to be the most surreal professional interaction of my career. When Daniel walked into my office, I could see the exact moment recognition failed to dawn on him. He knew he was interviewing with E. Martinez, regional marketing director, but he had no idea that E. Martinez was actually Erika, Sophia's older sister. Sophia had clearly never mentioned enough details about me for him to make the connection. "Good morning, Daniel. Please have a seat," I said, maintaining complete professionalism while internally marveling at the situation unfolding. Daniel appeared nervous, which was understandable for any job interview, but I noticed an extra layer of anxiety that seemed to go beyond normal interview jitters. His hands fidgeted with his portfolio, and he kept adjusting his tie in a way that suggested this opportunity meant more to him than just career advancement. "Thank you so much for considering my application," he began earnestly. "This position represents exactly the kind of growth opportunity I have been seeking. I am really hoping to establish myself professionally and build something stable." As the interview progressed, Daniel revealed more than he probably intended about his motivations. He mentioned needing to prove himself worthy of his girlfriend's family, particularly impressing her parents who had high expectations for their daughter's partners. "My girlfriend comes from a really successful family," he explained, clearly not realizing he was describing my family to me. "Her sister is this high-powered executive who apparently intimidates everyone. I need to show that I can match that level of achievement, you know. I want to be worthy of being part of their family." The irony was so thick I could taste it. Here was Daniel unknowingly telling me that I was intimidating, while simultaneously asking me to give him the job that would supposedly make him worthy of my family's approval. Throughout the interview, Daniel demonstrated genuine knowledge of marketing principles and showed creativity in his campaign ideas. He was articulate, prepared, and clearly intelligent. I had to admit, albeit reluctantly, that he was actually qualified for the position. Tell me about your long-term goals. I asked, curious to hear more about his perspective on his relationship with my family. Well, professionally, I want to build a career in marketing that allows me to provide stability and security. Personally, I am in a serious relationship, and I hope to propose to my girlfriend soon. She deserves someone who can match her family's level of success, and I am determined to become that person. His sincerity was evident even if his understanding of the family dynamics was completely misguided. Daniel genuinely believed that earning my mother's approval required professional achievement, not realizing that my own professional success had actually worked against me in that same dynamic. By the end of the interview, I found myself in an impossible position. Daniel was qualified, eager, and would genuinely benefit from the opportunity. He also seemed like a decent person who was simply caught up in my family's complicated dynamics without fully understanding them. We will be making our decision by Friday, I told him as the interview concluded. Thank you for your time today, Daniel. You will hear from us soon. After he left, I sat in my office staring out at the Seattle skyline, trying to process the surreal turn my life had taken. The man my mother had chosen over me was now quite literally in my hands professionally. I held the power to give him the career boost he desperately wanted, or to deny him the opportunity he needed to feel worthy of my family. The decision I made would affect not just Daniel's career, but potentially my relationship with Sophia, my standing with my mother, and my own sense of professional integrity. I realized that sometimes life presents you with choices that reveal exactly who you are when nobody is watching. I spent Thursday wrestling with my decision, but ultimately my professional integrity won out over personal feelings. Daniel was genuinely qualified and our team needed his skills. On Friday morning, I called to offer him the position. Daniel, this is Erika Martinez from the marketing department. I am pleased to offer you the marketing coordinator position. Can you start Monday? The relief and excitement in his voice were unmistakable. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ms. Martinez. I cannot tell you how much this means to me. I promise you will not regret this decision. What he could not see was my complicated smile as I hung up the phone. If only he knew exactly who had just handed him his career opportunity. Monday morning brought Daniel's first day, and I watched from my office as my assistant showed him around the department. He was eager, punctual, and clearly determined to make a good impression. Over the next few days, I observed his work ethic and interactions with colleagues, and I had to admit, he was proving himself to be a valuable team member. However, those first few days also brought unexpected revelations about Daniel's personality and his perspective on my family. During casual conversations with other team members, he began sharing details about his girlfriend's family situation that I found increasingly enlightening. During a team lunch on Wednesday, I overheard him talking to Jake from the design department about family dynamics. My girlfriend's sister is the super successful executive type, Daniel was explaining. Honestly, she is kind of intimidating. Sophia says she always makes everyone feel inadequate just by existing. That is why I am so focused on building my career right now. I need to be able to hold my own in that family, you know? The irony of him describing me as intimidating to my own employees while I was sitting 3 tables away was almost too much to bear. But what bothered me more was hearing that Sophia had apparently painted me in such a negative light to her boyfriend. Later that week, I overheard another conversation that shed even more light on the family dynamics I'd been excluded from. Daniel was talking to Maria from accounting about weekend plans. We are having dinner with my girlfriend's parents this Saturday. Her mom specifically requested that her sister not be there because she did not want any drama or competition for attention. Honestly, it is nice to have family time without all that intensity, you know. Sophia deserves to shine without being overshadowed by someone who always has to be the center of attention. The words stung more than I expected. Not only had my mother actively excluded me, but Daniel had apparently bought into a narrative that painted me as some sort of attention-seeking drama queen. The real irony was that I had always been the one trying to stay in the background, working quietly and steadily, while Sophia commanded attention with her social media presence and dating adventures. As the days passed, I learned more about Daniel's perspective on my family than I ever wanted to know. He mentioned to colleagues how he was planning to propose to Sophia within the next few months, how grateful he was that her family had accepted him so warmly, and how relieved he was not to have to deal with the complicated sister situation that Sophia had warned him about. Each revelation felt like a small betrayal, not just from Daniel, but from my own family who had apparently created this elaborate narrative about my character without ever giving me a chance to defend myself. 2 weeks into Daniel's employment, the inevitable happened. Sophia decided to surprise him at work with lunch, wanting to see his new office and meet his colleagues. I was in a meeting when my assistant knocked on the conference room door. "I am sorry to interrupt, but there is a situation in the marketing department that requires your immediate attention," she said quietly. I excused myself from the meeting and walked toward the marketing floor where I could already hear raised voices. As I rounded the corner, I saw Sophia standing in the middle of the cubicle area, her face flushed with what appeared to be a mixture of shock and anger. Daniel stood beside her, looking like he had seen a ghost. "What exactly is going on here?" I asked calmly, though my heart was racing. Sophia whirled around to face me, her eyes blazing. "What is going on is that you deliberately sabotaged my relationship. How could you hire my boyfriend without telling me? This is so typical of you, Erika. You always have to insert yourself into my life somehow." The entire marketing department had gone silent, clearly sensing the family drama unfolding in their workspace. Daniel looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor, finally understanding the full scope of the situation he had unknowingly walked into. "Sophia, this is my workplace," I said firmly but quietly. "If you need to discuss family matters, we should do so privately. Daniel, could you please join me in my office? We need to have a professional conversation about this situation." As we walked toward my office, I could feel the eyes of every employee following us. The secret that I had been keeping for 2 weeks was now completely out in the open, and I knew that managing this situation would require all of my professional skills. Daniel sat across from my desk looking absolutely mortified. "Ms. Martinez, I had no idea. Sophia never mentioned your last name, and I just never connected that E. Martinez was Erika. I am so sorry for everything I said about you to the other employees. I feel like a complete idiot." I studied his face, seeing genuine remorse and embarrassment there. "Daniel, let me be clear about something. Your employment here is based solely on your qualifications and performance. What you said to colleagues reflects poorly on your judgment, but it does not change the fact that you are doing good work for our team." But I talked about you like you were some kind of monster." He continued, running his hands through his hair. "I bought into this whole narrative about you being intimidating and difficult, and now I realize I was completely wrong. You gave me this opportunity when you could have just rejected my application. I do not understand why you would help me after everything that happened." I leaned back in my chair, considering how much of the family dynamics I was willing to share with an employee, even one who was dating my sister. "Daniel, my professional decisions are not influenced by personal feelings. You are the best candidate for this position, and you have proven that assessment correct. What happens between you and Sophia, or between me and my family, is separate from your job performance." He nodded slowly, but I could see he was struggling to process the complexity of the situation. "I owe you an apology, not just as your employee, but as someone who completely misjudged your character. I realize now that the family dynamics I thought I understood were much more complicated than I was led to believe." That afternoon, Sophia called me, her voice tight with anger and accusations. The conversation revealed even more about how my exclusion from the birthday party had been orchestrated and justified within my family. The phone call with Sophia that evening was unlike any conversation we had ever had as sisters. Her anger was raw and unfiltered, and for the first time, I heard the complete truth about how my family had discussed me in my absence. "I cannot believe you did this, Erika," she began before I could even say hello. "Hiring Daniel behind my back is so manipulative. You knew exactly who he was when you interviewed him." "Sophia, I hired a qualified candidate for an open position. That is literally my job," I replied, trying to maintain calm despite the accusation in her voice. "Do not pretend this was just business. You have always been jealous of my relationships, and now you are trying to control this one too. Daniel was finally fitting in with our family, and you had to ruin it by making everything about you again." The word "again" hit me like a slap. "What do you mean again? When have I ever made anything about myself?" There was a pause, and then Sophia's voice became even sharper. "Are you serious right now? You have always been the overachiever who makes everyone else look bad just by existing. Do you know what Mom said about you at her birthday party? She said she was relieved you were not there because Daniel could finally relax and be himself without having to compete with your perfect career and perfect everything." Each word felt like a physical blow. "She said that about me?" at her own birthday party. Yes, and honestly, it was such a nice evening without all the tension you bring to family gatherings. Daniel felt comfortable, the conversation flowed naturally, and nobody had to walk on eggshells worrying about saying the wrong thing around you. I sat down heavily processing this revelation about how my family perceived me. Sophia, I have never asked anyone to compete with me. I have spent my entire adult life trying not to overshadow you, trying to support your choices even when I did not understand them. Oh, please, Erika. Everything you do is designed to show how much better you are than everyone else. Your fancy job, your expensive apartment, your graduate degree. You parade your success around like a weapon, and then you act confused when people feel uncomfortable around you. The cruelty in her words was breathtaking. I realized that my family had built an entire mythology around my character that bore no resemblance to who I actually was or how I actually behaved. Sophia, when have I ever paraded my success? When have I ever made you feel less than I have supported every decision you have made, celebrated every achievement you have had, and tried my best to be a good sister to you? You do not even realize you are doing it. Like right now, hiring Daniel and then acting like you are being so professional and noble. You could have told me he applied. You could have recused yourself from the decision. Instead, you chose to put yourself in a position of power over my boyfriend. Her accusation stung because it contained a grain of truth that I had to acknowledge. I could have handled the situation differently, but her interpretation of my motives was completely wrong. I hired Daniel because he was qualified, period. If I had rejected him for personal reasons, that would have been actual sabotage. I gave him a fair chance, and he earned the position on his own merits. And now, he spends every day working for my sister, learning to respect and admire you, while I look like the dramatic girlfriend who caused a scene at his workplace. Do you see how this benefits you and hurts me? For the first time in our conversation, I heard something beyond anger in Sophia's voice. I heard insecurity and fear emotions that reminded me she was still my little sister underneath all the accusations. Sophia, I never wanted to hurt you or damage your relationship. I have been trying to stay out of your way to let you have space to build something with Daniel without interference from me. But you cannot just stay out of the way, can you? You always find a way back into the center of everything. And now, Daniel sees how impressive you are at work, and he is going to start comparing us, and I am going to lose him, just like I lose everything else to you. The pain in her voice was unmistakable now, and suddenly, I understood something that had been hidden beneath years of family dynamics. Sophia was not just angry about Daniel's job, she was terrified that she could not compete with me for his affection and respect. Sophia, you are not going to lose Daniel to me. I am his boss, nothing more. What you two have built together has nothing to do with me. Everything has something to do with you, Erika. That is the problem. You are always there, always successful, always perfect, and the rest of us just have to figure out how to exist around you. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment feeling completely drained. The conversation had revealed the depth of resentment and misunderstanding that had been building in my family for years. I realized that my attempts to be supportive and stay in the background had somehow been interpreted as calculated moves in a competition I did not even know I was playing. Over the following week, the workplace dynamic became increasingly awkward as Daniel tried to navigate his dual roles as my employee and my sister's boyfriend. He was professional and hardworking, but I could see the strain of the situation wearing on him. The breaking point came during our monthly department meeting when Daniel's performance review was scheduled to be discussed. As his direct supervisor, I had prepared a positive evaluation of his first month's work, but I could see the discomfort in his face as he sat in the conference room. After the meeting, he asked to speak with me privately. Miss Martinez, I need to be honest with you about something. The situation is putting a lot of strain on my relationship with Sophia. She feels like you are deliberately undermining her by keeping me here. And honestly, I am starting to wonder if it would be better for everyone if I found another job. I looked at him carefully, seeing a young man who was genuinely trying to do the right thing but was caught in a situation much more complex than he had signed up for. Daniel, that decision is entirely up to you, but I want you to understand that your job performance here has been excellent, and leaving would be a step backward in your career. You should not sacrifice your professional future because of family drama that existed long before you came along. He nodded slowly, clearly wrestling with the decision. I appreciate everything you have done for me, And I want you to know that working here has shown me how wrong I was about you. You are nothing like the person I was told you were. You are fair, professional, and honestly, you have treated me better than I deserved given the circumstances. That conversation marked a turning point in the entire situation, though none of us knew it at the time. 3 weeks later, everything changed in a way none of us could have predicted. It started with a phone call from my mother on a Thursday evening, her voice carrying a tone I had not heard since I was a child in trouble. "Erika, I think we need to talk," she said without preamble. "Sophia told me about the situation with Daniel's job, and I am beginning to realize that perhaps I did not handle things correctly with my birthday celebration. The admission was so unexpected that I almost dropped the phone." "What do you mean, Mom?" "I mean that I made decisions based on assumptions about how you would behave rather than giving you the benefit of the doubt. Sophia has been telling me about how professional you have been with Daniel, how fairly you have treated him despite our family complications. It has made me reconsider some things." I sat down slowly, not trusting myself to respond immediately. My mother continued, her voice growing softer. "I want you to know that I never intended to hurt you by asking you not to come to my birthday. I genuinely thought I was protecting everyone's feelings, including yours. But I realize now that I was protecting myself from dealing with difficult family dynamics rather than addressing them properly. Mom, it really hurt to be excluded from your celebration," I said quietly. "It felt like being punished for my success for being who I am." "I know, sweetheart, and I am sorry. I have been watching Daniel these past few weeks, seeing how he talks about his work, how much he respects his supervisor, and slowly realizing that his supervisor is my daughter, the daughter I thought would be too overwhelming for him to handle." There was a long pause before she continued. "Daniel came to dinner last Sunday and he spent the entire evening talking about his boss with such admiration. He described someone who is fair, intelligent, supportive, and professional. It took me most of the conversation to realize he was talking about you, Erika, my daughter." I felt tears starting to form as I listened to my mother's words. "I never wanted to be overwhelming, Mom. I just wanted to make you proud." "You have made me proud, honey. I think I lost sight of that somewhere along the way. I got so focused on managing everyone's comfort level that I forgot to consider your feelings. That was wrong of me, and I owe you an apology." The conversation continued for another hour, during which my mother revealed more about the family dynamics that had led to my exclusion. She admitted that she had been trying to manage Sophia's insecurities about my success rather than addressing them directly. She acknowledged that she had inadvertently created a narrative where my achievements were seen as threatening rather than celebratory. "I want to have a family dinner this Saturday," she said before we hung up, "all of us together, including Daniel. It is time we had an honest conversation about how we treat each other as a family." Friday at work, I noticed Daniel seemed more relaxed than he had been in weeks. During our weekly team check-in, he mentioned that some personal stress had been resolved and he was looking forward to focusing more fully on his work projects. "Is everything okay with your girlfriend's family situation?" I asked, maintaining professional boundaries, but showing appropriate concern for an employee's well-being. "Actually, yes. I think we are going to have a family dinner this weekend where everyone can finally address some of the issues that have been building up. I am nervous, but I think it will be good for everyone involved." Saturday evening arrived with typical Pacific Northwest weather, drizzly and gray, matching my uncertain mood, as I drove to my parents' house for the first family dinner I had been invited to in months. When I walked into the dining room, the atmosphere was noticeably different from previous gatherings. Daniel stood up immediately and extended his hand to me with a smile that seemed genuine, rather than politely forced. "Erika, it is really good to see you outside of the office. Thank you again for everything you have done for me professionally. I hope we can start over on a personal level." Sophia looked uncomfortable but not hostile, which felt like progress. My mother had clearly done some preparation work for this gathering, because the conversation flowed more naturally than I had expected. During dinner, Daniel shared stories about his work that painted me in a positive light, describing my leadership style and management approach with obvious respect. I watched my family's faces as they heard about me from someone outside our complicated dynamic, and I could see their perceptions shifting in real time. "I had no idea you were such a supportive manager," my father said during dessert. "Daniel makes your department sound like a great place to work." "Erika has created an environment where everyone feels valued and challenged," Daniel replied. "She pushes us to do our best work, but she also supports us when we are learning new skills. Honestly, working for her has been one of the best professional experiences I have ever had." The conversation continued with my family asking questions about my work, my projects, and my career goals. For the first time in years, I felt like they were genuinely interested in understanding my life, rather than simply tolerating my presence. As the evening wound down, Sophia asked to speak with me privately. We stepped out onto the back porch, where we had had countless conversations growing up. Erika, I owe you a huge apology. She began, her voice shaking slightly. I have been carrying around so much jealousy and resentment about your success, and I took it out on you in ways that were completely unfair. Sophia, we have both made mistakes in how we have handled our relationship. I replied, wanting to extend grace, even though her words had hurt me deeply. No, this is not about both of us. This is about me being threatened by your achievements instead of being proud of them. I convinced myself that your success somehow diminished mine, and I created stories about your motivations that were not fair or accurate. She paused, looking out at the garden where we used to play as children. Daniel, spending these weeks working for you has shown me who you really are as a person, not just as my older sister. He comes home every day talking about how much he learns from you, how fair you are, how you treat everyone with respect. I realized I have not been seeing you clearly for years. The conversation marked the beginning of a healing process that none of us had realized we needed. Over the following months, my relationship with my family slowly rebuilt itself on a foundation of better communication and mutual respect. Daniel continued to excel in his position, and while his relationship with Sophia eventually ended for reasons unrelated to our family dynamics, he remained a valued member of our team. The experience taught all of us important lessons about assumptions, resentment, and the courage required to address difficult family dynamics directly, rather than avoiding them. My mother never had another birthday celebration that excluded any family member, and she made a point of acknowledging my achievements in the same way she celebrated Sophia's successes. We learned to see each other more clearly beyond the roles and narratives we had constructed over the years. Sometimes the people who uninvite you from their table end up needing a seat at yours. But more importantly, sometimes those painful experiences force families to examine their dynamics and choose to build something better together. The hurt I experienced from being excluded led to conversations that ultimately strengthened our family bonds and helped us understand each other in ways we never had before. As I reflect on this experience now, I realize that being uninvited from my mother's birthday was not really about Daniel or family image or professional success. It was about years of unaddressed insecurities and miscommunication that had built walls between people who genuinely loved each other. Sometimes it takes a crisis to tear down those walls and rebuild relationships on solid ground. The most important lesson I learned was that my worth as a person and as a family member was never actually dependent on my professional achievements or my ability to make others feel comfortable. My value existed independently of those external factors, and recognizing that truth freed me to engage with my family from a place of strength rather than a constant need for approval. Have you ever been excluded from a family event because of jealousy or misunderstandings? How did you handle the situation, and what would you do differently if it happened again? Share your experiences in the comments below, and do not forget to hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Subscribe for more real-life family drama stories that explore the complicated dynamics we all navigate in our relationships. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that their worth is not determined by other people's insecurities. Thank you so much for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the most painful family experiences lead to the most meaningful growth and healing. I wish you all the courage to address difficult relationships in your own lives with honesty, grace, and the hope that understanding is always possible when people choose love over fear.